and wish we all had a jacket like Jeff's.
Shoulder pads are helpful, make you look a little broader.
Howdy, folks. Good evening. Welcome back to Brazos Real Estate Investors Club. I'm Keith. I'll be your host this evening as we talk real estate investing in Texas and beyond. So I'm a real estate investor. I own a HomeVestors We Buy Ugly Houses franchise. I'm a realtor with 12 Realty in Bryan, College Station, Texas, and we run the Brazos Real Estate Investors Club. I'm also outside loan officer with Jet Lending. So I wear a lot of hats. Tonight, I wear a lot, but I'm not wearing the producer hat. So we have somebody in the studio here with us running the show behind the scenes. So she's going to see your comments as they come up live via Facebook or YouTube, and she's going to throw them up on the screen. And our guests tonight are we're going to see them and we're going to answer them. So if you're coming to us on Facebook, she's going to throw up a little link that you need to hit just to give Facebook permission to throw your name. Otherwise, we're going to see you as Facebook user. We'll still answer your question, but we won't know who it's from. So we hope everyone's staying safe. They're ready for Christmas, and you've been buying houses and growing your portfolio. So a little bit more people are logging in right now. But while they're logging in, we want to thank our title sponsor, University Title. We also want to thank Jet Lending, letting us use their studio here. Also to Extraco and the rest of our sponsors. You're going to meet a few of them tonight, Fred Bayliss and my fellow HomeVestors teams. So we're talking with Fred Bayliss, attorney. We're going to talk real estate disclosures. I'm excited about that. So mistakes you can avoid. And then as I bring our HomeVestors team in, we're going to be talking about just things that we've done in the past year and plans we have for the next year. And on that theme that Fred is going to talk about, we're going to be talking about mistakes that we've made too. So get your questions ready. You can start posting them right now. We're going to be back here every month. So if you've got an idea, put it in the comments. Again, if you're coming to us from Facebook, click on that link, and we're going to get started back with Fred Bayliss right after this. We'll see you in a few. Hey, howdy, Fred.
Hello, how are you doing?
My name is Keith Roberts. If you're just joining us, we got Fred Bayliss, real estate and business attorney here in Brazos County and in Bryan. Fred, we go way back. You're one of our first sponsors of BRIC, and we appreciate it. But probably not a week or two goes by that we don't have you on the phone or in an email advising us on our real estate. So we're very excited to have you here tonight. So how are you doing?
Doing great, Keith. Thanks for having me. It has been a pleasure being affiliated with Brazos Valley Real Estate Investors Club. It's been great professionally, and I've had the opportunity to represent many of the members and the different investors here in town, and it's one of my favorite aspects of my business. And with that, I've gotten to see a lot of highs and some lows. And that's one of the things we decided to talk to y'all about tonight. some of the lows that we could all try to avoid in our real estate investing life. So
I hope none of them are from me, from us.
maybe one.
Yeah. I heard the example you were talking about earlier, and I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell yours.
There might be a few.
That's right.
Yeah. So, so before we dive into that, I know you're going to talk to us about, mistakes made. So, unfortunately, that's probably when a lot of people call you, is when they're already in trouble. So we'll just jump right in. Just tell us some things, real estate investors, what kind of mistakes do we make, and what's some things that you wish we wouldn't do?
I sure will. Like you said, my preference is to help y'all purchase properties, sell them, owner finance them, things like that. But along with the good comes some of the bad. And I'll start with the basic premise of what duties you have as a seller on the duty to disclose. So sellers have a duty to disclose all known defects that a reasonable person would deem material. So any defect that you know of the house that you would deem material, it's imperative that you put it in the seller's disclosure, because if you don't, the buyer has the remedy of rescission in addition to the remedy of damages. And rescission means that if they can prove to a court that you knew of a material defect and failed to disclose that, and that defect is of a nature that a reasonable person would deem material, the court can award the remedy of rescission, which means you have to buy the house back plus all their closing costs, all of their monies they spent fixing it up, etc. So it's quite a draconian remedy that you really, really need to avoid. And we hardly ever get to that point, but lawyers use that to force you to pay a bunch of damages so they don't pursue the litigation for remedy of rescission.
So just to set the stage for people, so they know where you're coming from, we have bought a house already, or we own a house,
right,
and we are marketing it, or we're getting ready to sell it. And then we fill out a seller's disclosure. So pre-printed here, it's a TREC pre-printed form, or TAR, but we're putting in that seller disclosure everything that we know about the house. I mean, there's a lot of fill in the blanks. And what you're saying is, which is the advice I give everybody, we're realtors also, and we don't touch that form when it's the client. Mm-hmm. We tell them, you just need to, they always call us, do we need to disclose? I almost cut them off. Yes. Yeah. If you're asking me, do we need to disclose? Then the answer is yes.
Please advise your clients to be perfectly honest. It's so much better to lose a sale for somebody being afraid of something you disclose than get a sale and then have it go bad because of your failure to disclose. And one other thing, Keith, to go a little further, a lot of y'all out there are realtors, and you said just then that you tell your client to make sure you disclose everything. Realtors do not have a duty to investigate. You don't have to crawl around under the pier and beam looking for problems, but any knowledge you have a duty to make sure that is disclosed. If the buyer can prove that you as the realtor knew about this defect and did not get it disclosed, then you have liability as well. Again, you don't have a duty to investigate, but you do have a duty to disclose all known defects that you are aware of. So I hate to say this, but if you got a $9,000 commission on the line with a obstinate client that won't disclose, then it's very important that you let that client go. They either got to disclose it or you got to let them go, because you can go down with them. And so that's very important. And one thing people go, people never find out. But what happens over and over that I see, here's a couple examples that I see. Let's just say the garage floods when it rains. The buyer buys it. It rains. The garage floods. You're out there sweeping the garage out. Next door neighbor comes over and goes, "Oh man, Keith, every time it rained, Keith was out here sweeping this garage out." And there's your evidence. Keith knew that the garage flooded every time that it rained, and he failed to disclose it. Another one that I've seen happen a bunch of times, particularly with like really bad sewer pipes and stuff like that. The buyer buys the house. They call a particular plumber or whatever, describe the defect, the problem. They look it up on their computer or whatever and go, oh, I was there 2 months ago and I gave them a $25,000 bid and they didn't want to spend the money to do it. That's happened to me so many times you can't imagine. So between neighbors and service providers and stuff, somebody's gonna squeal on you.
So
And-
Curtis asked if somebody in your employ knows about the defect, can you as a realtor, I'm guessing he means you're a realtor firm and
Right.
someone in your office knows about it. Maybe they're neighbors with it or something.
Curtis, let's say if you're the realtor, or if you're talking, you're the realtor, you're the agent for the owner. So any of your employees would be deemed part of you. So yes, that could be a problem. As far as if you're the investor and one of your employees knows, probably the court, you'd have to prove to the court that you had knowledge, but it'd be hard to argue that your employee knew, but you didn't know. So I'd be careful with that one. They probably get you on that one. And then Derek just said, hey, Fred, can you please cover the downsides of owner financing empty city lots that are owned outright through an LLC? I don't really have a problem with the process of, owner financing and foreclosure. The longest it can take is about 60, 65 days if you're prompt on proceeding with the default. If you're talking about, let's see, are you talking about selling them or buying? If you're talking about being on the seller side, no, lenders don't have any liability anyway. So if you're worried about something happening, or, sorry, my dog's outside acting like a fool. But if you're worried about somebody coming on the lot and getting injured, the lenders don't have any liability. So no, I would have no problem with that. And your question about having as an LLC, that is a extra layer of protection. So I always recommend my investors to buy and sell house in LLC, because I hate to say this, but if things go really bad and you maintain the integrity of the LLC, the corporation, all you can lose is the assets in that LLC or corporation, unless you have really good attorney and they can pierce the corporate veil. That's a whole nother topic, but yes, it's advisable to have an LLC. So
Jeff asked a question, and this is particular for investors, because we buy some damaged houses that
Right.
a lot of stuff wrong with them, and then we fix them and then we sell them. So at what point, I mean, it gets a little crazy to fill out a seller disclosure that says everything was wrong with it, but now it's not. So,
well, you're psychic. That was my first example that I was going to give. One of my
psychic.
Do what?
It was Jeff who was psychic.
Jeff psychic. Okay. One of my best investor clients, he completely relies on his inspection of the property, and he bought one in Bryan that, you're not going to believe this, but the seller's realtor, had the seller be completely honest. They disclosed flooding, foundation issues, and so much stuff that they even wrote in the listing. Realtors, make sure your purchasers review this seller's disclosure before they even look at the property, because in our opinion, it's a teardown. And it was a brick house on a good street and all, but my client never even looked at the seller's disclosure. He came in, he put French drains in, he fixed the slab, completely, replaced every light fixture, every plumbing fixture, all the countertops and all that. Beautiful house. Ended up being about 2,800 square feet or so. He fills out his seller's disclosure. He made a beautiful house. So he didn't say anything about slab, didn't say anything about previous flooding, because it says previous flooding. It doesn't say only previous flooding that happened while you owned it. And so anyway, flooding came in from another area that had come in from the past. And it was the heavy floods about 3 or 4 years ago. And they went to an attorney attorney did a good job. They found the seller's disclosure from when he bought the house that he never even looked at. And like I said, I've never seen a seller disclosure that was so bad. It disclosed everything and said, should be a teardown. Well, my guy did not feel, he hadn't done anything that he thought was bad. He tried really hard, made a beautiful house, but there was nothing I could do with that. I mean, if I went to court and it said, here's the seller's disclosure when you bought it, flooding, bad foundation, this and that. Here's your seller's disclosure where you said everything is perfect. That was a really bad. And so he ended up buying the house back and giving them some money.
I've seen some other investors talk about a disclosure sandwich in that case. Like they say, here's the previous disclosure, here's all our construction receipts, invoices, all the stuff that we did. Here's the new disclosure. You guys
that's very fair. That's exactly what we did because I said we had to buy this house back. So when we sold it, we said, according to the previous owner, there was flooding. We did this, and that, French drains, and attached all the receipts. According to the previous owner, there was foundation problems. Here's our anchor foundation receipts. And so we just buttoned it up all like that, sold it, got out of it okay, but obviously, lost some money, but made it out. So you've got to make sure you disclose. And when you have a bad disclosure when you bought it, you can't ignore it. Address it with the things you did to make it better. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is in your horror story list, but updating your disclosure.
Yeah. We had that one with y'all.
Yeah. So it might be all buttoned up and then you discover something else and you never go back and fix the disclosure.
Some water came in through a window or something?
During the option period, like during the contract period. And matter of fact, it was the other agent who discovered it and told us about it. So then later said, we were unaware of this because it wasn't in your disclosure. No, you were aware of it because you're the one who told us about it.
Told us about it, yeah. And people get a little amnesia there. My next one is a recent one. And as flippers, what is y'all's goal when you're trying to make your repairs? To make it as nice as possible for as possible? As little money as possible.
I don't want to say that because then somebody will come back and say, you said that you spend the least amount of money you can on property.
You're not going to confess. Okay. So anyway, my client remodeled the house, made it beautiful. And in his MLS listing and with the permit City of Bryan, it said new roof. Well, he bought, shingles from Lowe's or somewhere on, probably marked down or whatever, hired a laborer or two to pull off things that look bad and replace the roof. Well, after the buyer was in there for a while, after some rains, they started having water problems. And of course, they had roofing companies come in who want a new roofing job. And they found that, let me see some of the things they found. They found damaged shingles, damaged decking, damaged underlayment, and noticed the home was not properly flashed. So, I go to my guy after I get the letter, hey, give me, the contract with the roofing company that put this roof on so we can make a claim. Well, I bought some shingles at Lowe's and had, so-and-so put them on. He didn't take off all the decking. He didn't put all, did whatever was the cheapest, and now.
An investor?
Do it.
This was an investor?
Yeah, it was an investor. Yeah. So now they're making a claim for a new roof, $10,000 and $2,500 in attorney's fees. And, maybe, if you're going to do a new roof, use a company or don't say complete, new roof or whatever. So you got to be careful on your marketing. The next thing I want to go to, some of y'all have sold things on contract for deeds, and there's certain, if y'all don't know what a contract for, the normal owner financing is the seller signs a warranty deed conveying title to the buyer. Then the buyer signs a promissory note promising to pay X amount of money on certain terms and conditions. And then the buyer also signs a deed of trust giving the seller a lien on the property to foreclose on in the event of failure to pay under the promissory note. Another method that we use is a contract for deed. And the advantage it has is the seller retains title of the property until the contract is paid in full. So in a nutshell, you're entering into a contract with the buyer for the buyer to make a stream of payments to you that eventually pays the house off. And once the house is paid off, then you convey title to the property. The only reason that I want people to still do contract for deeds is if they're not comfortable with their current underlying note, then you can if you do a contract for deed, you still own the property. So if you have to refinance, you can refinance. If you do a traditional, if you do a wrap, which means you keep your a wrap note and deed of trust, you keep your underlying note in place. You don't own the property anymore, so you can't refinance if you need to. But anyway, so back to the contract for deed. There's a lot of requirements. And I had a client that did a beautiful remodel job, and probably it was too expensive for a contract for deed. It was a little over $400,000. I've never done one that high. And probably because of COVID, they couldn't pay. So they started looking for defects in the contract for deed and negotiation, et cetera. And one of the requirements in the contract for deed is if the contract was negotiated in Spanish, the contract for deed has to be in Spanish. Well, my client had a person out there who finds customers for him, and the buyers claimed that she negotiated in Spanish, and she said, "No, I didn't negotiate in Spanish. What are you talking about? That person speaks English. She has a make-ready company. She does, work for all kind of, big apartment complex and stuff here in town. She speaks English." So, I fire back to the attorney. "Oh no, it was negotiated in English." He sends me text messages from the person who's negotiating in Spanish. My seller's accounting person sent all the text message to in Spanish. Oh, son of a gun.
I typed it in English and Google automatically translated it in the phone.
So now we make all of our people prove to us that it was negotiated in English. If not, we have to do it in Spanish, which kind of sucks. Luckily, Lorena Maltz is really good, and so are computers nowadays.
I don't speak Spanish, but I will say that we've sold a house using Google Translate. So,
yeah.
Hey, so we're I know you got a couple more of them, and I could listen to them all night, but we're going to hop into a break. I'm going to bring the HomeVestors guys up here next, and then we're going to stick around, and then we're going to bring you back and then hear that other horror story.
I got most of them out. I can tell a couple more when you come back. No, it's up to y'all. Okay.
Probably we might have some of the people in the room that are part of that example. Maybe.
I'm not going to disclose any identities.
Yeah. Hey, Fred, that's awesome examples, and I'm hope to hear more. So don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Those of you listening, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined with the rest of my HomeVestors team here in town, full-time investors, and we're just going to hear some things we did wrong that may have landed up on Fred's desk, and things that we got planned that we're going to do better next year. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Okay. All right.
Hey, howdy, folks. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Keith Roberts, joined with my partner, Jeff Mazzolini, there in the snazzy coat. Together, we make up Rockwater Investments. We also have Nick Cantrell with Cannon Creek with the awesome hat there and the studious bookshelf. And we got Dustin Stahlheber. Thanks for joining us with Intentional Properties. So a little bit about us. I'm going to do a quick intro, and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. So we are full-time real estate investors. We actually talk to each other a lot during the week. We are not all in the same company. We're all independently owned, except for Jeff and I are partners. But the rest of us, we are 3 different companies, but we all independently own our business. we're all separate. We own a HomeVestor franchise, and we all operate under systems and standards of HomeVestors. But the opinions we give tonight are our own. This isn't a commercial. We're not selling anything. We're fellow investors in BRIC with y'all, and we just want to share what we do. We get asked a lot. You know, some of you work, have another job, and then you do this in your spare time. So we just wanted to give you kind of an insight into what we do, or what we don't do. So I'm going to open it up just real quick, just in case people didn't know. I'm just round the horn. Tell us who you are and how long you've been real estate investing. Start with Jeff.
Howdy, guys. I'm Jeff Mazzolini, partners with Keith Roberts, class of 2005 out of A&M. Been in real estate ever since with a wholesale company out of Houston called Net Worth Realty, and then moved up to College Station in 2011 and partnered with Keith a year or two after that. So we've been at it for 7-ish years, give or take.
Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick. I've been in real estate for about 6 years now. I started out with Jeff and Keith at 12 Realty. Kind of worked beside them, seeing what they were doing with HomeVestors, and decided that'd be a good fit for myself. So I jumped into that about three years ago. I've been doing that since, and have really enjoyed being an investor and helping other investors out.
And fun fact, Nick and I actually served together in the Army briefly.
Keith, I can't hear a word you say.
You can't hear me?
Hey, this is Dustin. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you, Dustin. Your screen's going in and out.
Dustin, I'm kind of the newest person to the HomeVestors team, and I've been here about 2 years now. I bought my first house in 2005. Did part-time investments ever since then until about 2 years ago. And I decided to leave corporate and come and do real estate as a full-time an investor. And I've really enjoyed it. The first year was a little bumpy getting going as full-time, but the second year has been very nice.
Good. Thanks. Dustin, can you hear me now? No, he's a little delayed. Okay. So Dustin, I think you can hear us, but you're delayed by a little bit. So I'm going to tease something up for you here in a little bit. But what I'd like to start off with is what you guys are doing this year that maybe you weren't doing in the past, or what the most recent thing that you're doing and successfully. So Dustin, if you heard that question, well, we'll come to you in a second. Nick, we'll start with you, and then Dustin, once you hear this, we'll go to you after Nick.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably doing a little bit more wholesaling this year than I have before. What I've seen over the last couple of years is that I typically end up holding several properties October, November, December timeframe, and trying to manage a handful of rehabs at one time. When the market is slow, can be difficult. So I've been pretty selective on what I'm holding to rehab, and then working wholesale stuff out. So, especially with COVID going on, just trying to stay a little bit more liquid than I normally have been.
Okay, good. So Dustin, maybe? No, I think it's signs. Yeah, I think it's delayed. Yeah. All right. So we will shift up to Jeff. Dustin, you're delayed. Once you hear this, you're delayed. I think you can hear us, but there's pretty significant delay out there in Caldwell. So Jeff, what are we doing maybe different this year that Jeff or that Nick and Dustin isn't doing?
Yeah. Well, I think to echo what Nick said, I think we've wholesaled a handful of deals this year, and I think it's something that isn't typically at top of mind as far as an exit strategy. The other thing I think we've done some of, kind of going back to 2019, and then two or three, maybe four more this year is the owner finance. We even did a contract for deed on one of our new builds this year. which kind of COVID kind of spurred that deal. Because if I recall, we had it sold outright with traditional financing, and the gentleman lost his job and in turn lost his financing. But we were able to figure out a contract for deed scenario that worked for everybody and put that in place. And Fred, who we saw earlier, helped us through that process. So thank you, Fred.
Yeah. So it's possible Dustin can't hear me. So Nick, can you ask Dustin that same question I just asked you?
Hey, Dustin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Jeff and I can hear Nick, but I can't hear a word he said.
All right.
Okay. So what he's asking you to say is, what have you done differently this year, maybe from us or from what you've done in years past, that's been working for you, just based on market conditions and COVID and everything going on.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've really taken with is I've taken every call serious. I take every lead I get and I follow up on it. I do research on it. It's real easy to allow leads to get kicked to the curb because you get busy or you think there's no potential there. And I've even given some away cheaper than I should have by not doing enough due diligence on those leads. So, it's helped noticing that, those are falls and those are things I can get better at. As far as the COVID side, getting things to market quickly has been a good thing because things are selling real quick. Not overdoing it on the rehab, just kind of getting them cleaned up. Even just putting them on the market, as is, kind of cleaning them out and putting them on the market has worked well.
All right. So we lost Jeff, but Nick, thanks for the alley-oop there. So what do you think some things that you shouldn't be doing that you are doing? And Nick, I'm gonna need you to translate there to Dustin. Either because you should be paying someone to do it, or you just think it's a bad idea that you should stop doing.
Yeah. So Dustin, you can listen to the question, then I'll answer it, and then you can. So he's asking, what are you doing right now that maybe you should outsource to somebody else or hire somebody to do, or it's just something that you've kind of fallen into a bad habit and that you're still continuing to do. I would say one thing that I did this year is I finally outsourced my taxes and bookkeeping to someone that I can rely on and get everything done. That's not my personality to keep up with those types of details. And so that's one thing that I did on the positive that I had been doing previously, trying to mess with on my own. The other thing that I'm probably doing that I probably need to outsource at some point or hire somebody preferably to do would be the follow-up aspect. In our business, that's just, that's key. I mean, I don't think most seasoned professional investors would tell you, it's a small percentage of deals that you actually do on that first appointment. It's following up and speaking with folks, on a continual basis. And I know, Keith, you've had a deal that you closed, Jeff and Keith, that was 5-6 years later, I think.
It was 5 years to the day. Matter of fact, before I went out on the appointment, I had the old notes with me. And when I was sitting in her house, we had been keeping up with her for 6 months, every 6 months for all that time. And when she said, okay, with writing the contract, I knew the date that the original call came in. And I said, how's the 14th sound? And it was a relatively, 40 days away. It was close. And she was like, yeah. So I did everything I could to make sure we closed on the 5 years to the day after she called us. It was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So tip that over to Dustin if you can to answer that same question.
Dustin, did you hear that question?
No, I can't hear anything Keith says.
Okay. what are you doing that you should be outsourcing, and what's a bad habit that you're still doing that you probably need to kick for 2021?
Yeah, so one thing I did start outsourcing is even though I'm a realtor, I've been licensed for 10, 15 years, and I have Houston MLS and I have BCS MLSs. I started outsourcing all my listings. By trying to list them myself, I found that I just get in the way of the listing, and by having a third party take my houses and list them for me, it makes a sale just so much easier. It kind of just takes the emotion out of the game and allows someone else to take those phone calls, to send those emails, to make sure the contracts are coming in when they're supposed to be coming in, the earnest money is getting dropped off like it's supposed to. So that has freed up a big amount of time for me. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow. You know, you're giving away, you know, $3,000 to $6,000, kind of depending on the sale price. But, you know, if you lose one deal because you wanted to take a listing, you know, is that listing really worth it? And kind of putting some numbers on, you know, how much your time is worth has become an asset to start to realize, hey, this isn't really worth my time. Let me have someone else handle this sometimes. And kind of the same thing with Lowe's. Like, you know, I go to Lowe's a lot, and, you know, doing a rehab and trying to find new items all the time has become a sore spot. So, you know, by just having item numbers that you can just drop off at the pro desk and say, hey, you know, I need 6 of these, 3 of these, 8 of these. And you have the same item numbers for each house, the fan, the light, the dishwasher, whatever it is. And you don't have to spend 8 hours picking out the items all over again. And they'll pull them off the shelf for you. They'll have them ready. You can get them delivered. You can pick them up, whatever you choose. But it just saves a lot of time going in the store and messing around and trying to find those items all over again for every house you do.
Yeah, that's great. I know you can't hear me, Dustin, but that's great. I was just talking to the Home Depot Pro desk at our convention the other day, and they said they can have all your normal stuff, and they'll have it ready for you. It's pretty neat. So, Jeff, what do you think for us?
I mean, we've talked about it, and we had help at one time, and had it recently till some stuff came up, some family stuff on her end. But yeah, some of that just kind of clerical type stuff in the office, the QuickBooks, the bill pay, the lead follow up, and things of that nature, which I think HomeVestors does provide us the tools and the software and stuff to, if we knew what we were doing and knew how to work it really, really well, that would be, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But yeah, just that kind of stuff. We're out of water. I had to go fill up the coffee maker in the sink today instead of out of a jug of water. that kind of stuff we need help with.
I don't even know where that water comes from. It's just supposed to be in that case right there.
It blows up.
Yeah. So Dustin talked about shopping for stuff at the store. Yeah. And so I kind of use the mentality of, you know, my time's worth $100 an hour. You know, I don't know anyone that'll pay me that, but if I think that way, then I think anything less than that should be paying someone else to do it. So because our you know, we should be on the phone or we should be looking at another deal. So I'll jump to this question. Is a mistake maybe you made last year? I know that might have already been answered in the what are you going to stop doing, but is there a mistake that you made? It doesn't have to be a big, huge, expensive mistake, but something that you did that changed the way you do business. And I started off, it was what Fred was talking about, disclosure. We thought, I mean, we're realtors. We know how to do disclosures. We advise people. We thought we filled disclosure out pretty good. And then, you know, a contractor made a mistake that once the new buyer owned it, and the new buyers came back and looked at the disclosure and found a few things that they said that we didn't properly disclose. Now, we disagree with them, and that's where attorneys got in it. But I think looking back, it was in that case, I mean, we do disclose everything. I mean, what Fred was talking about, we write in the margins. I fill that thing up, and he's right. People will read it and they don't care up front. But I think if we, learned something there, it was updating the disclosure would have been that. So I'm going to let Nick start next. And go ahead, Nick.
So one thing that I learned, I think we've got Curtis on here that's listening in, or he was earlier. Wholesale the deal to him, and it could have been a lot worse than I think it ended up being. But I'd never done this. Is checking utility liens before you close, and so it was a property that I wholesaled to him, followed through with the closing, and then it turns out the sellers hadn't paid their utility bill for like 6 months or a year or something like that. And so the utility company had put a lien or a hold on the property to where he couldn't actually turn on the electricity until that issue was cleared up. And so in speaking with him, that's something that I think he does, on a regular basis in Bryan, in College Station, but we kind of both missed it in Navasota. And so, that's something that could really come back and bite you and be expensive and certainly delay your rehab while you're trying to work through that. Cause like you and Fred said earlier, the goal is to fix that house, I'm not going to say as cheaply, but as little money as you can afford as possible and as quickly as possible. So, that's definitely something that could happen. Another one also I would say is we Curtis and I had an issue as well. Make sure you're getting a release of lien from your contractors and that you're actually signing contracts with your contractors to do the work, so that if something goes sideways, you've got a paper trail that protects you when it comes down to it. And Fred, fortunately, shout out to Fred. He kind of helped us navigate those waters and deal with that issue. And because we had our ducks in a row, and frankly, it was Curtis that had his ducks in a row, those folks ended up going away. They were actually just looking for a quick couple $1,000s because they knew we were under contract. But do things the right way, even though it's more painful and more time consuming, because at some point it'll become a bad habit, and then at some point it's going to bite you.
So ask Dustin that same question.
Yeah. So I even forgot what the question was.
Mistake that you made that changed the way you do business.
Yeah, Dustin, a mistake you've made that has changed the way you kind of done business.
So I was pretty bad at hiring contractors, and I really didn't care if they had insurance or not. It hasn't bit me yet, thank goodness. But it's a path that I've decided to change. And hiring guys that don't have insurance, it might save a couple $100 or whatever it is, but in the short term it's fine, but in the long term it could really be a pain in the rear. And and also just running naked without any insurance for yourself as well, it has been a hazard. Having a good GL policy is a good thing to have. Even putting an umbrella on top of your LLC or on your personal for no extra coverage on the insurance side in case you do get in trouble and you got to hire Fred to kind of help you out. He's got there's some space in there to protect you and your personal assets. So the insurance side has been one of the biggest probably learning curves that I've picked up, and I've decided to start moving forward and hiring guys that had insurance on all the time and had a good policy that could prove their documentation as well.
Yeah. Good.
Jeff, same thing I said.
I mean, I would just revert to what you said.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm gonna go quickly around the horn, then we're gonna bring Fred back in. But just what the next thing on the horizon? I mean, you might be good at it, but you want to get better at it, or just your next little nugget as you go into 2021. what you want to start doing or look more into, or what's on the horizon? I'll start with Jeff.
I think probably some more building, maybe even GC and a build, ourselves, and or also another project like the Clay Street townhomes, where we took a couple residential lots, replatted them, went through the city process and the entitlement process and all that, and put up a new product that was different than what was there before. So development and building.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the same thing. Want to get in the new build, but also the carving up the bigger lots and the smaller lot, and either us building on them or selling them. And that's a little bit different than the single family model that we've been focusing on. But Jeff, if you can do that up for Dustin for me.
Yeah, Dustin, anything you're looking forward to in 2021? Any new little ventures, new exit strategies, anything like that?
Yeah, a new adventure I've been working on, and I've had it for some time, is building a little 9-space mobile home park and leasing that out just for dirt. I think, I'm here in the Caldwell area, so, we're probably looking at about $325 a spot. So, if I can pick up, 25 to 3,000 a month on just some dirt, I think it's a good avenue. I know, trailer parks are pretty popular with some investors. The prices on them have gotten pretty high because of some larger investors have come into the market and started paying a little bit more for them, and they drove demand up, and they're just not building more mobile home parks as well. So the cost to create a new one is higher than the return, than the return you get back. So it doesn't make really sense to build one. But I found a little area where I can keep city services. I have good road frontage, so I don't have to put in infrastructure and put in roads. It's kind of just drop houses and rent them out. And so that's something I look forward to, hoping to get that in 2021. And looking to do a little more owner notes on just small parcels, either like lots in town or little 1 or 2 acre pieces just kind of scattered out. It's good return on it. It's easy money. There's not a lot of risk involved in it. There's contract insurance, the insurance with contractors, you don't have to rely on that. So those are 2 things I'm looking forward to in 2021.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. I know you can't hear me, but thanks. Nick, we'll end with you and bring Fred back.
Yeah, just staying flexible and adaptable to what's going on. I mean, who'd have thought 9 months ago that we were still going to be in some semi-state of lockdown. So, I think just continuing to be flexible and have your pulse on the market. I don't do rentals, so I definitely want to pick up some more, contract for deed, owner finance deals. That's kind of what I view as my long-term source of cash flow, not having to deal with tenants. But at the same time, I did pick up a rental this year just because of the way the market was going and COVID and just having to, do something different with the property that just wasn't moving at the time. So, I would like to pick up some multifamily properties if possible this year. But yeah, that's kind of see what 2021 brings and adapt to the market.
All right. That's awesome. Hey, and before I let y'all go, I just want to say I'm blessed to be able to work with y'all. This is a great crew. I love coming to work every day. And you guys, when your calls come in, especially Jeff, my partner, but the other guys, always got time for you because I'm learning while I'm talking to you, and it's just awesome. So I'm blessed. And we're gonna bring Fred back in here. I'm sure I'll talk to you before Christmas, but for those of you who are watching from home, all of us here, we love that your involvement in the club, and we hope you have a Merry Christmas. So don't go away. We're gonna take a real short break, and we're gonna bring Fred back in, and we're all gonna be in the room. Derek, I saw your question. We'll get to it here in a second. Thanks. Hey, and we're back. That was awesome. We heard from Fred earlier. Then we just heard from the HomeVestors team. Dustin, raise your hand if you can hear me finally. Yes. Awesome. Well, I left the studio and came back, so hoping that kicked
His
off.
name's on the screen now. That's why you can hear him. That's why
Yeah, but these other guys did a great job. So, Dustin, real quick, Derek asked in the last segment, is the mobile home park inside the city limits that you're working on?
Yes, it is.
Inside Caldwell city limits?
Yes, it's in Caldwell city limits.
Okay.
It's a 1 acre tract. It's not real big, but that's kind of it's hard to find areas in cities where you can put mobile homes. Period. Bryan College Station is almost impossible to put a mobile home in. Some of these smaller towns, Somerville, Caldwell, Navasota, they have areas that are designated as mobile home allowable. So you got to give the city, and you have to find those areas that they've mapped out, and that will allow you to put a mobile home in those designated areas.
Awesome. So, Fred, we'll start this off. This is round robin. There's no structure, so we're going to take our cues from the people listening. But just off the bat, did we say anything in our last segment that made you raise your eyebrows that you want
to I really liked a lot of things y'all said. Dustin's comment on insurance is a good one, particularly if y'all going to be doing new builds. I had one where a builder hired a real framer. The real framer hired a
fake framer
sub who hired a sub, and the guy showed up one morning and didn't have appropriate scaffolding, and he started putting sawhorses together and started putting boards on it and building up, and it fell, and he broke his ankle and got a hold of an attorney that sued the homeowner, the builder, and the builder didn't even know this person existed because he was a sub of a sub of a sub. And it was 6:45 in the morning. And so, yes, insurance is important. Make sure your subs have insurance. Make sure you have insurance. Y'all also talked about other things to look for. We had one recently with one of our people we've talked about here tonight. Make sure you look at your surveys when they come in, because the title company missed, I couldn't believe it. The driveway and the carport were on the neighboring properties. And I'm doing the closing, and I just was given the survey at closing to get him to sign. I go, is that supposed to be your carport? He goes, yes. And I go, oh, it's on the neighbor property. We got real lucky to get out of it. The seller happened to own the property next door, and so the investor is going to buy that property too. So we got out of it. But make sure you take the time to look at the survey. Make sure you take the time to look at the title commitment. If you have any questions on it, ask me. That's what I'm here for. And then, one other example I wanted to give you on the seller's disclosure. I was representing the buyer. I did the closing. Maybe I did the close, maybe I didn't. But they came to me afterwards, and it's kind of a unique thing that you need to be aware of. Flooding came in from the side, and when ServPro came in, they found baseboards underneath the sink and closets and stuff like that showed damage from months or years before, because you can't start getting mold within a day. And somehow they found out that the sellers had made a claim with State Farm for flooding, but I think it was related to an air conditioner or something. But they didn't disclose it, and so they brought it to me. So I sent a letter, and also the wife of the seller admitted to that claim. And so I had that text, and I said, I don't want to be a jerk here, but y'all knew of some form of flooding and didn't disclose it. It wasn't even related to this flooding that we had. And they ended up writing a check for $7,000, to get out of the situation, where if they just put that there had been flooding and there was a claim on it, we wouldn't have had anything. So that was another one. And one other thing I want to say on the contract for deeds, two other problems that we've had. If you ever do a contract for deed, Nick, Keith, whatever, remember it is a contract for deed. Do not in your texts or emails say, hey, you haven't made your note payment, you haven't made your mortgage payment or whatever, because we had one where the buyer ended up not having enough money to pay for it. In fact, went to a lawyer, and the main thing they could hang their hat on was that she did not understand there was a contract for deed. She thought she owned it, and here's proof of it. You know, the seller multiple times referred to it as a note, mortgage, et cetera, which it's not. So if you are going to do contract for deeds, make sure in the contract you say it's going to be a contract for deed, because most of y'all use your TAR forms and the the seller financing addendum, put in special provisions. This property is being sold on a contract for deed. You will not have title to the property until the contract for deed is paid in full. So those are a few things I just want to throw out real quick.
Hey, so on that note, and it was kind of a question we didn't get to when we were in the group, but my question for that group was going to be, you know, what's it like? We're full-time investors. Sure, we're still learning. We make mistakes. We're always striving to get better. We learn from each other. But the question for our group was going to be, and I'll scoop you in on it, Fred, is what it's like dealing with other investors. I mean, there's other full-time investors in town who are, you know, just as good or better. We love working with them. I mean, we're all involved in this real estate investors club, and so we're hoping everybody gets better there. But my question for you, for the group, is what are the things that when you're dealing with maybe inexperienced or new investor are some red flags? You know, for me, I'll answer first. It's, you know, this 1-page contract or 2-page contract that people pull off bigger pockets or something, and they're being super sneaky about, and you can't see this, and my advisor in California told me that I'm not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
And Nick and I talk about this all the time. I just don't have time for it. We should be able to do this business, and we do, with all our cards on the table, disclosed, you know, just throw it out there. There shouldn't be any secrets and hidden. So my question for you, Fred, and then I'll open it up, is you deal with all of us. And so, but you also deal with other things. So is there stuff that we're doing right, you know, that they're not, that makes it easier?
Yeah, just some of the things that I can't stand, and I don't like it when people bring the 1-page contracts or contracts that says this must be approved by my financial partner, stuff like that. Be straight up. Use the TREC forms. Use the TAR forms. Be forthcoming. Disclose everything. If you look shady, if you have any appearance of shady, you're going to look real shady when an attorney gets involved on the other side.
Yeah.
So be forthright. Be somebody that their friends, that they'll refer their friends to. You know, if you're shady, they're not going to refer their friends to you if they have a bad experience. So
yeah, and the downside, I just think they're just getting bad advice. Nick, I know you bump into people all the time. You're buying stuff off of Facebook groups, and I'm gonna caveat this by saying nothing against new investors. We want new investors to get better. We want to deal with you. So what do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I would say echo everything that you said. Keith and you and I have talked about it, you know, quite a bit. At the end of the day, wholesaler, you know, these new wholesalers, investors, you know, most of them are looking at wholesale properties. They need to understand they're selling the contract, not the property. And so it's my right to view that contract. That's what I'm buying. I don't buy a car unseen. I don't buy a house unseen. I'm not going to buy a contract unseen. So, you know, those red flags are when, you know, it's a 1 or 2-page contract. You know, when I get information that's all redacted, you know, they won't let me see the original contract that I'm purchasing. And then, you know, if I ask them if the contract is at a title company with some earnest money, and they start getting, you know, a little bit skittish on that, you know, those are kind of those three red flags. And you know, it's just I agree with you, Keith. They're just out there getting bad advice, whether it's from California or wherever it's at. But you know, you just treat people the way you want to be treated. And like Fred said, if you do it the right way and you lay your cards on the table, I don't care if you bought the property for $1. If it makes sense for me to buy it at $100,000, man, that's awesome that you bought it that cheap. You know, it makes sense for me to buy it 100, so I'm going to. I don't care what you're making.
I was talking to a guy about a property for a week, and when it came time to look at and I knew his entity name, and when it came time to look at the contract, it was a whole new entity that I had never heard of, and I Googled it, and it had the same last name as this guy, and the contract was dated like yesterday within the time. So basically we had started talking about it, and then this guy formed another entity and wrote a contract with buying it from his brother. And I said, no, where's the contract from? Like, is your brother the owner? Oh, well, nah, just walked away.
I agree with both of y'all. If like Nick said, I've dealt with a lot of y'all who, are letting the wholesaler get $20,000 or whatever, but don't do it unless there's a real contract that they show you that's not redacted, that's at the title company, and you can start dealing with the title company. Pay for the contract, but you got to know what you're paying for. And I don't deal with the sleazy people. I don't represent them. The other thing that I don't do that people with all the seminars always want to do is they want to, do an assumption, and then without telling the person they're assuming from, wrap it to somebody else. I don't mind you doing an assumption, but don't do an assumption and pass the note on to somebody else without telling the seller, because if that person doesn't pay the note, the original seller doesn't even know they exist. They're going to come back to you when it gets foreclosed on, their credit to them. So I don't participate in that either.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
Just to kind of echo everything everybody else said. As far as dealing with other investors, new investors, things of that nature, it's there's good ones and bad ones. I had and Keith, I told you about this last month. Had a guy reach out to Texas Investor Financing looking for a $15 million transactional funding loan to wholesale a hotel in the Metroplex in DFW. And I assumed it was not going to pan out. I don't have that kind of money. But I kind of wanted to play it out just to see where it went. And kind of had to explain to him what a double close was. And his return question was, well, how do you sell a property you don't own yet? And or how do you even write that contract? And so I kind of told him about the double close addendum we use. And it was just kind of shocking to me that a guy looking for $15 million to flip a hotel doesn't know the ins and outs of, a pretty basic transaction, which is a double close, when it comes to real estate investing. So
we're not doing that deal.
Not doing that one, no.
Oh man,
that's like a wholesaler coming in, and I can't tell you how many times I've asked this, like, how much option do you have? And the question is, what's an option? We can talk about that on a different day, but that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, so red flag for me is just, like you said, you ask these questions that are pretty common, and they kind of start stuttering around. And, if they don't know, that's fine. Just say, hey, like, I don't know that. I'm new. I need some help. Like, I don't know everything. We don't know everything. We still got a lot to learn. But for the new guy coming in, just say, hey, what do you think of this? Like, I don't know the answer to this. And problem, helping people along, because we're all there at some point. But really, I think probably what chaps me is people committing, coming out, they get a contract. A lot of these people that are, getting wholesalers to contract with them, or, these people are in need. And, they string them along and they play the game with them. And, if you can't close it, just tell them, hey, I can't close it, but I'm going to do my best to find something for you. Just don't string them out. And then, 2-3 months left, they walk off and leave them with the bag still. And then, we get those calls. Those calls come in and that we go through this, and it's like, yeah, well, I don't buy houses like that. If I can't close it, I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm not closing this. I can help you, but this is my extent of my help. Just be upfront, be honest with people.
It's the same. I think, we're honest with each other. We're honest with the sellers. Jeff and I look the seller in the eye and say, if we're not going to buy it outright, we tell them, hey, we can't make that number, but we'll try your number, but we need an option period, which means we need time to find someone else within our club who will buy it but we may fail. We don't often, but we may fail, and we're going to come back to you and not buy your house. And I know there's a lot of people out there that teaching people, don't ever admit that. Don't even let them know you have an option, and then you just spring it on them. And now you have a real lady, who thought her house was being sold, and now it's not being sold. And there was no reason for that, because you could have got the deal anyway just by admitting to her, I need 3 weeks to find a buyer. It's not going to be me, and I might fail. So those are great points. Jeff, those comments about your jacket, I think, are coming from Megan and
Yep,
Jacob.
thank you, Megan.
And I think the first one was Jacob. So shout out to Megan and Jacob, my favorite YouTubers. Awesome. And there's Antonio chiming in at the last minute. Oh, and here goes Evan. So Evan's voting for the top picture on my wall. Megan voted for the middle one. So we're going to wrap it up, but just if you have anything for the group, like I said in the last segment, I'm blessed to be part of this group. Fred, we're blessed to have you as a part of it, and we appreciate all y'all's time tonight. So any parting comments, notes for the other investors, or anything you want to say that you didn't get to say yet?
I just want to say I'm honored to be able to work with a group of such integrity, and it shows in your success, and it shows in how you deal with good times and when there's adversity. Y'all deal with it head on, and I really appreciate each and every one of y'all, and I'm honored to work with you.
Thanks, Fred. Likewise.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to 2021. 2020 was kind of an odd year, especially with the whole COVID thing. It's kind of unleery how the market's going to turn out. I think January is going to be a good start. So if you have stuff to sell, put it on the market, get it sold, and I think there's going to be opportunity that's going to come about in 2021. And one thing that I've learned is, don't sell yourself short. Don't pick up too skinny of a deal just to make something happen, because when the good deal comes along, you're overextended or you don't have the time to make it happen. So picking up deals that are too skinny aren't always worth it. Sometimes it's better to hold out for something a little bit bigger, and it makes a lot more worth the time.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Keith and Mary for putting this on, keeping us all connected during this stuff. Fred, can't thank you enough for just being responsive to texts and emails and phone calls. It's truly appreciated. And I would advise anybody out there that's got questions, give Fred a call. He's the best out there, and I'm not just saying that because he's a sponsor. I mean, he's helped us out. He's helped me out personally more times than I can count, and it's just good knowing you got someone like that in your corner.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nick.
Awesome. So all y'all have a Merry Christmas if you're out there listening to us. So we hope you have a Merry Christmas, and that your 2021, you grow your portfolio. We'll be back here next month. Antonio, shout out to Antonio. Hey, we can finally see your name. You're not a Facebook user anymore. That's awesome. So we'll, I know I'll talk to y'all before Christmas, but everyone else out there listening, have a Merry Christmas. And we'll see you in the new year. Let us know what you want us to talk about next year, next month. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.